Come closer. Little more. There we go. Listen to a tale of science, love, war, betrayal, and eventually suicide. That is what is in store for you today here at Cambridge Polymer Labs. It is located at the south end of Cambridge, inside this very nondescript looking building. Inside you will undergo a trial and hear the tale of people who once worked here, but at the end the reward is worth the work. When you enter, you will be set upon by Molly, the only robot left here. She will talk to you, interview you, and offer you a job.
Welcome to the Cambridge Polymer Labs. Employment opportunities await in the field of scientific research. Shall we begin your application now?
Sure, I'm game.
Let's begin the interview. Due to increased demands for staff in all fields, we have condensed the employment test accordingly. Question 1. Do you possess previous experience with polymer synthesis?
Sounds like you need me regardless, so let's get down to brass tacks.
Calculating test results. I am pleased to offer you the position of Sales Coordinator. Expect a loquacious future in haggling for military funding. Would you like the orientation before beginning your work in the labs?
Orientation?
The orientation is intended to provide the new employee with a history of the company to enrich their working experience. Would you like the orientation before beginning your work in the labs?
Sure, why not?
Wonderful.
After that is done, a brief orientation gives us some history on the place.
Please find an open seat, and we will begin the presentation. The genesis of Cambridge Polymer Labs lies in the research of a group of brilliant graduate students. John Elwood, Ericka Woolham, and Wilfred Bergman met during their time together at CIT. This slide shows them at their graduation. Their research into nucleostrictive and piezoelectric polymers caught the attention of Colonel George Kemp in the fall of 2073. In the spring of 2074, the company was founded, with a generous grant provided by the Defense Experimental Research Project Initiative. The research produced here has resulted in several of the components used in the Liberty Prime project that led to the successful defense of Anchorage. The company enjoys a strong relationship with the military and welcomes your addition to the research team that helps build a better America. Please follow me to the research lab so that you may begin your work. Complimentary beverages are provided for employees. Please label any food or cigarettes you leave in the break room.
So the research here was led by 3 individuals: John Elwood, Ericka Woolham, and Wilfred Bergman. These 3 were recruited by Colonel Kemp to work for DERP, and their work also contributed to the development of the greatest communist killer ever to stroll the earth, Liberty Prime. So the group were at the forefront of their fields, and worked in what was once a great building. Probably? As it stands, the place is a shambles now, clearly the result of the blast wave when the bombs went off, as we will read more about later. The upper floors are mostly empty, bar the director's office, which we will take a look at the end. The employee offices are quite normal, except for a random arm just lying on a table, for whatever reason. After this, we can now head to the lab, which will take us past a spacious employee kitchen, and shower and locker area. So they had pretty good working conditions. The entrance to the lab comes in the form of a pair of maglock doors that lead to a clean room, and can be unlocked from these terminals. A decontamination sequence is present as well, which gives you a bit of an idea of how clean the lab needed to be. Molly will then trap you in here like a bitch until you either complete the armor, more on that later, or escape. In this room we find our first corpse, clearly a member of the science team. Interesting to note is that they have the Vault-Tec logo on their coat, which would suggest that this lab was, in some way, affiliated with Vault-Tec. Next up are the first set of terminal entries. Now bear with me here, I do not know what half of these words mean. I will mispronounce many of them. So this is the terminal of Dr. Ericka Woolham, one of the 3 people mentioned in the orientation, and the first group of entries are under Nucleostrictive Lining Project. The project thesis is about how they figured out that if they apply gold and lithium hydride to zirconium titanite, that a localizing conversion of electrical energy may be achieved. She goes on to say that they may be able to apply this method to power armor. What I take away from this is that it protects from radiation. The next entry says that the theory was sound, but thermal waste is occurring and, while not apparent on a macro scale, i.e. visible to the eye, would break down the gold suspension, most likely ruining the armor. She then says they have a few ideas on how to stop this. The third entry states that the idea worked, and while the efficiency of harvest is decreased, the lifespan of the material is now years instead of days. However, the tensile strength of the material is not strong enough to be applied to power armor, and of course Colonel Kemp, instead of being an adult about it, bitches and moans, as we have come to expect from the military. 4 takes a turn for the worst. They've been stuck in the lab with no info for a few days, and people are trying to escape, as is natural. They even try to cut a hole in the wall. A will is mentioned, and this will is in fact Wilfred Bergman, another of the 3 mentioned in the orientation. His yapping provides Ericka with a way to fix their problems, by setting the dosing pattern at an angle. Then 2 more people are mentioned, Tom and Miri, and that they will try this method. It all goes tits up in 5. Will has locked himself in a lab, and ended up locking Miri inside the isotope containment with U-238, one of the materials they need. He has the bright idea of activating the defense system, so that the clean room will open, but then they will all be seen as attackers. He also apparently has military training, and is a buck in Egypt. The last of the 3 is mentioned, John, and it appears that he is the one that locked them all inside. They then decide to crawl into the roof to jump Will. Next is the internal meal relay. The first is from Will, where he hatches his plan to get them out. The isotope containment was leaking, but John wouldn't let them out. He has hacked into the defense system, and he's going to activate it to open the clean room. We then find out that John is Ericka's husband, which makes this all a bit more juicy. The next one is from John, and explains what's going on. The bombs dropped while they were in the labs. The only way for the team to get a military escort out is if they finish the armor, so John locks them in to finish it. The last entry seems to be the email that John sent out when it all went down. Everyone has to work longer, but it's okay because they get shite coffee and donuts, plus some other crap. He also lies and tells everyone that it's just a drill and to keep working, even though most of their families are probably dead. Now before we look at everything else, here's how you make the armor. You need 3 components: gold, lithium hydride, and U-238. The lithium hydride is sample 3111 and is found in the room south of C4. The gold is 611 and is found next to a terminal in a room near the collapsed catwalk. U-238 is found in the isotope containment room. As you can see from this terminal, you collect the samples, bring them back here, put them in the right places, and then run the fabrication routine. The output of all this is the Piezonucleic Power Armor chest. So they were working on a new type of power armor when the bombs dropped. The only way for all of them to get a safe escort was by completing it. So John lied to his employees. He locked the place down and made them finish it. Ericka, his wife, was among them, and Will, one of the other members. He tried to set off the security protocols to open the clean room. This was because John would not let them out even after the isotope chamber started leaking. I can assume the presence of these ghouls is also because of the leaking radiation, which explains why there was a glowing one in the containment room. In here we find U-238, and another skeleton, who I believe to be Miri. It was mentioned that Will locked her inside the containment room, so perhaps she never got out. I have not a baldies how the ghoul managed to get in though. After this, we can take a good look at how wrecked the place is, though this was probably the ghouls doing, as the employees didn't know about the bombs hitting, so it was unlikely to be the blast wave. A radiation suit can be found in this room, along with the lithium hydride. Inside this next room, we can find quite a bit of scientific equipment, which speaks of the sophistication of this lab. It's also an excellent source of crystals. The next room has even more equipment, and a terminal we can use to open up the isotope chamber, the leakage of which is the reason for the alarms. Now it's up the stairs, to find out what happened to the rest of the poor sods that worked in this hole of a lab. So first we will take a left and find another corpse. This one is of a male, I am assuming based on the clothes. Next to them is a terminal that gives us more juicy entries. This is the terminal of Miri, who we think was trapped in the containment room. There is only one entry new to us, the lockdown status from John. It's all part of the lie. He tells them it is mandatory to finish the project, and that they can leave when it's done. He goes on to try and dispel their worries about the noises and that it's all just a wee drill. He then goes off on a patriotic one about how this work protects America and how China is evil. Arsehole. So he continued to lie to them even when the noises got worse. We can see some empty bays where the security robots may have been situated, though they are empty now, most likely done in by the posse of ghouls that dwelt here before we showed up. The next room is where the ghoul can be found, and is also where they went through the roof of to get to Will. Tom sits at his desk, trilby and sunglasses on, brewing a nice pot of rat poison. Wait, what? Suicide note. Oh. Yeah, he killed himself. If we look at his suicide note, we learn that Ericka did indeed go into the crawl space to try and get Will, and she died as a result of a gun that he rigged up, most likely inside the crawl space itself. Tom was the last one left, besides Will presumably, and he was succumbing to radiation sickness. He then opted to kill himself by drinking rat poison, possibly mixed in with a nice cup of tea. We can get up into the utility ducts and try to get to Will's room. Along the way we find several bones, and then the remains of Ericka, lying in the vent where she died. She was never reunited with her husband, and she died trying to stop Will from unleashing the security system. She died trying to finish her work. A pistol can be found on the ground, presumably the trap that killed Ericka. We can also find the codes to the containment room and Will's terminal. The first entry shows how he might have overrid the controls and locked Mary inside the isotope containment room. Next are the defense systems. Interesting to note is that you can trigger this again to open the clean room if you cannot get all the samples. The systems for the clean room were locked out, so he did try, as John said he did. Now for his internal mail array. The first is from Ericka, pointing out the many flaws in his otherwise airtight plan. The most obvious being that they will all die even if the doors do get opened. But Will clearly thought this through. Next, John talking shite. It reads like a YouTube comment. He goes on about how Will used to be a great hacker, but their system is too good for him to hack, because goading the person you left for dead always turns out great. Lastly, we read some of the deleted mail, or at least scraps of it. So Tom and Mary both think he's insane, and someone called L. Reed tried to cut through the wall, and J. Harvey was either with him in that or something else. Couldn't find out anything more about them, but they died before Tom did, as he states he cannot go on his own. So Will hacked the system and let security out, which opened the doors, hence the reason we could get in. However, by that point everyone else in the lab was dead, leaving Will the last person alive. Well, before we get to him, we can go and get the armor. Remember, the two samples were in C5 and C3, then we pop in U238, and then we get this glorious piece of chest armor. And with all of its ridiculous specs, it was worth all the work. Now, I think this corpse is Will's, and I have a good reason. After he activated security, he managed to make it down here and then got killed, just outside the clean room doors. I really hope this is the case, as he was a total shitlord and deserved to die in front of his goal. Knowing what we know now, all the holes in the walls are explained by the cutting that they attempted when trying to get out. All that is left is to enter John's office and see what has become of him. Well, for starters, he's a ghoul. You can get a fusion core in his office and then go have a nosy at his desk, which has a terminal, ham radio and Massachusetts Surgical Journal on it. The clean room monitoring system is clearly frigged, as nothing is normal down there anymore, which is contrary to what this is telling us. The first entry of his personal logs is him talking about Colonel Kemp's weird message, who told him to keep the team in the lab. He thinks he was trying to tell him something. What is revealed in entry 2? He was trying to warn him about the bombs, and now all the communications are wrecked. This explains the ham radio, as he was trying to use it to get in contact with Kemp. The next one says that everyone is looting and he's been shot. Also radiation sickness. He gets in contact with Kemp, and is told they can only extract him if the project is done, and he'll get done for treason if they try and get extracted without it. Entry 4 tells us what happened to the reactor, and that around this time Will started to arse about, trying to hack everything. Also, his wound is going septic. The last is an apology to Ericka, and he hopes she finishes her work, and reads this entry. Well, that never happened, and she never did. His internal mail array gives us more mail as well, the first from Ericka. She can't see John moving, and Will is going to trigger the system. but she's going into the crawl space to stop him. So he was probably dead at this point, and she died shortly after, or he was at least incapacitated. Next is Will bragging about his elite hacker skills, and then says Ericka could get hurt in the fight getting out, perhaps a veiled threat that he would hurt her, which in the end he did. Ericka told everyone what was going on, and Will locked everyone out of the containment room, and Mary inside. She wants him to get back control, but he's either dead or isn't able to do so, so that's a little bit difficult. This entry tells me that not all of them were chronological, as this is clearly before she finds her solution, as she doesn't know if she can solve the problem, and that people have families and have a right to get out and see them. The deleted mail is what you would expect. Someone called N. Stoke thinks he's a bastard. Tom wants to know what is up. Mary wants out, and L. Reed plays the "this is illegal" card, for all the good it does. J. Harvey wants to see his dead kids, and Mary can't get a call out. And since the EMP knocked out the communications, I find it odd it didn't damage some of the other equipment as well. Then again, that may be why some of the mail is deleted. The corpse of the director is interesting, in that it's missing an arm, and his shoulder was septic, so maybe it came off after he ghoulified, or he cut it off. So this is Cambridge Polymer Labs, a lab that worked on parts of Liberty Prime, and made advances across the board. They began working on a new way to design power armor, and then the bombs hit. Colonel Kemp told John the only way they would get an evac is if they finished the prototype, so we locked them in the lab. Ericka worked away at the problem and eventually arrived at a solution. However, Will was also trying to hack the system, and locked Mary in the now leaking isotope chamber with the U-238 sample. He then planned to activate security to open the clean room. They had already tried cutting through the walls. Ericka climbed into the crawl space to get the jump on Will, but died on a rigged trap that Will set up. Tom, who was the last left alive going by his letter, killed himself, leaving Will to be the only one left. John succumbed to either his wound or radiation poisoning and was most likely unable to move, as he did turn into a ghoul at some point, so he didn't die. Will then tried to leave, but was killed just steps from freedom. Many years later, we arrive, and complete the experiment, showing that Ericka and the team were right. We continue their legacy by wearing this armor, as it offers us protection as we murder things. So the story of a brave group of researchers trying to win their freedom with brilliance, and one dickhead. I hope you enjoyed our look at it. If you did, give the video a like, and if you want regular updates, subscribe. Recently, this channel has passed 200,000 subscribers, which is insane, as only a year ago we had less than 10,000. So I just wanted to say, thank you. Any suggestions for lower or future videos should be left in the comments below. Better yet, go onto my subreddit so we can discuss them in more detail. It's linked in the description. If you wish to, you can support me on Patreon, which is also linked in the description. Go have a gander at the rewards. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook to get regular updates or have a wee chat. Any business you wish to discuss, email me at thenthapple.business@gmail.com and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope to see you in the next one. And until then, goodbye.